And joining me now is Arizona Congresswoman Yasmin Ansari. She is the first Iranian-American Democrat elected to Congress. She represents the Phoenix area, where there are an estimated 25,000 Iranian Americans. Congresswoman, thank you so much for being with us. Your district does have one of the largest Iranian American populations in the country. So when that briefing does finally take place, what are the key questions you'd like answered?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. There are so many questions I have been looking forward to asking this administration, including, first and foremost, what was the intelligence that showed us the urgency of actually taking military action against Iran? I'm also extremely concerned that the president decided to unilaterally and illegally make this decision without not only getting authorization from Congress, but not briefing Congress. And I think the fact that they canceled this briefing today just goes to show how chaotic this administration really is. I don't think there's agreement within senior level officials. We've seen over the last couple of days that they have completely contradicted one another in terms of what the purpose of any of this was, with the president himself tweeting about regime change just 2 days ago, to then saying there's a ceasefire, to Tulsi Gabbard saying the intelligence isn't there, then saying the intelligence is there. So they want to make it easier to lie to the American public, and that is unacceptable.
As we wait for those answers, what do you know about right now the situation inside Iran? For example, are there still Americans who want to get out? And if so, is help available to them?
There is not only very little information about the Americans who are inside of Iran, which I'm sure there are, but also very little help in getting out. We know many flights were canceled over the course of a couple of days. The biggest issue that I'm concerned about when it comes to the Iranian people who vastly and vehemently oppose their regime, as we already are hearing reports about how the regime is cracking down even further on the civilian population, using what just happened as a reason to imprison even more people, accusing them of being spies. And I think what is going to happen is we are going to see an even more repressive Islamic Republic regime that cracks down on its people, which is devastating for people who did not ask for any of this.
What have you heard from your constituents? I mean, what are their worries for family members who may be still living in Iran or visiting Iran?
I represent an extremely diverse district, a district that's heavily impacted by ICE and Trump's mass deportation policies. Largely speaking, I can tell you that my constituents were extremely opposed to the U.S. militarily taking action and to the potential of another endless war for the United States. My constituents can't even afford housing or health care or their utility bills. So the idea of tax dollars being spent on this was egregious. When I've talked to Iranian Americans, not only in Arizona or across the country, they were very concerned about the way that Donald Trump conducted himself in all of this. Remember, just last week, he used social media to ask a city of 10 million people in Iran to evacuate. This is a massive metropolitan city where people have nowhere to go. So there are just so many concerns here, from the chaoticness and recklessness of the way this president handles foreign policy to the fact that he's not even carrying out the foreign policy priorities of the American people or carrying out his own promises, which was to not get the United States involved in any new wars.
Well, as you know, President Trump had earlier floated the idea of regime change, though in the last hour, while on Air Force One, he said he is opposed to the idea, and he was quoted as saying, regime change takes chaos, and ideally, we don't want to see so much chaos. Do you have a sense of Iran right now, and whether there would be an embrace of the idea of regime change there or among your Iranian American constituents?
Here's the thing. Again, the vast majority of Iranians oppose the regime in Iran. I also think it's important to look at the history of not only Iran, but the Middle East and foreign countries writ large, where intervention and trying to influence regime change from the outside is not effective. A couple of years ago, there was a massive women-led protest movement in Iran where Iranian people sought to topple their regime. And then we saw thousands of people imprisoned and hundreds killed by this regime. What I am concerned about now with the flip-flopping of this president is that I think that he has now emboldened this regime. Not only do we not know whether or not the strikes, the military action that the United States took was successful. We have no credible reality on that. And so it could be that this regime not only could have moved, and the knowledge will continue because, of course, the nuclear scientists are still there, but now they will be skeptical of everyone internally and wanting to survive themselves. And so this could become an even more hostile regime in Iran as a result. They will likely oppress their people even more. We already know that to be the case, with new folks being imprisoned in Evin prison, which is one of the most notorious prisons there. So again, coming back to Donald Trump, no clear objective. When you talk about taking out nuclear facilities and then regime change within the span of 48 hours, you are causing mass chaos, not only for a country, but for a region and for the world.
Congresswoman Yasamin Ansari, thank you so much. We appreciate you coming on.